Hi friends, I'm Julia and welcome to Talking Away podcast and channel. Here is a happy place where we meet with fascinating people and most of all we discuss about our favorite thing, traveling, going away and simply experiences abroad. Trust me, we're going to make you travel with this podcast. So in this first episode, I'm going to meet with Jarl, whose family has the most unique lifestyle because they live in the most northern town in the world. So you're gonna learn about their experience there, his experience there, and just how it is to live there and live with polar bears as neighbors. So if you're ready, take a comfortable seat and follow me right away on my rooftop. So your parents are living in Svalbard?
Yeah, Svalbard. Yeah, so first of all, I want to say excited to be on your podcast, to be a guest. Super exciting. And yeah, Svalbard is a topic I can speak about for hours, and you know that because
I know, yeah.
I've forced people to listen to me, but it's just this fantastic place, right? It is this place on the planet. It just doesn't feel like it's a part of the planet Earth that I knew before visiting, or many other people neither. And yeah, so my parents moved there 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
So they've been there for a bit of a while, been through 2 entire seasons. And Svalbard, I mean, it's just to put it into this geographic context, it's really an island by the North Pole. That's how I usually simplify it to people.
Okay.
So if you think Norway is considered to be pretty far up in Europe, it's basically Norway. You turn it on itself, and you go twice as up north, and that's where you find Svalbard.
Okay, crazy. So Svalbard is an archipel of island, right?
That's an archipel of islands, exactly, if you want to be correct. And you have one island on which people live, called the Spitsberg.
Okay, so that's where your parents live, this small town, right?
Yeah, so they live in one of the two towns. Actually, there are two small towns on Spitsberg.
Okay.
You have Longyearbyen, and then you have another one called Barentsburg. And so they live in Longyearbyen, which is the biggest one of the two. Still relatively small though.
That's crazy to think about it. That is the most northern town in the world. And so how many people live there, do you know?
That's a very good question. Last time I checked, it was around 2,500 people.
Wow.
And it's been hovering around that number for a long while, actually. Even before, sometimes it used to be much more. Which is surprising. You'd think that maybe this is a place that more and more people migrate towards. But it has a history of having attracted the people for hundreds of years. And so the population has kind of varied. But yeah, 2,500 people is where it is.
That's crazy. And that must be like so isolated from the rest of the world, right? Like, I'm just wondering, like, how does people live there? Like, how it looks like, the life there, you know? Like.
Great question. So I can talk a bit about Longyearbyen, which is the small town in which my parents live. So that's a small town governed by Norway. Myself being Norwegian, my family being Norwegian, it was kind of a natural place to go at one point. And it's located in a valley between two tall mountains.
Okay.
And it's at the end of a fjord into on the island. And one of these long fjords that go in, that used to be a glacier, and now it's just a huge fjord. And getting there in the summertime is relatively easy with a boat, but in the wintertime it can be really difficult. And so they get their shipments actually with boats that come once a week.
Okay, during the summertime then, when it's like accessible.
During the summertime, and then they try to do it during the winter time as well. But that doesn't always work. So when
it's frozen.
Exactly, sometimes it's frozen.
Okay.
And so that's funny. When I came to see my parents, they had a room just dedicated to goods that they might not be able to get if a shipment didn't arrive.
Crazy. You need to be very like thoughtful and like plan, like, and think about like potentially being isolated for like the whole winter
for a long time. I guess
Crazy.
that's one of the things that climate change is kind of tackling for them, that the likelihood of that happening is decreasing from year to year. But this year was actually one of those years where the entire fjord and the water froze. And so what they did is they had one of these icebreakers that they were making go back and forth every day, just to keep a small line of water fluid.
Crazy.
It's pretty crazy.
So you said they live here for 2 years now, right?
Yeah, so 2, 3 years. My mom moved over a bit before my dad, but yeah,
Okay.
it's been a while.
And how is the weather there? Is it like super cold? Like I'm wondering, like it's almost North Pole, right? Like what's the latitude of that?
Yeah, so it says so Longyearbyen. The town is 78 degrees north.
Okay, so just to tell people to compare with North Pole is 90 degrees,
Yeah,
and so where your parents live is 78.
78 correctly.
Okay.
And if you think that the equator is zero, right, it kind of goes to show how far up north you are, and also I like the way I like to visualize how close it is to the North Pole. One of the first things I learned that I actually saw when I went there the first time was people getting ready for expeditions towards the North Pole. So in the wintertime, you actually can, on a good year, walk from the island to the North Pole.
Okay.
Of course, these are big expeditions where you have sledge dogs and you bring food for weeks or months.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just kind of insane to think that you can do that walk on ice all the way up.
It is insane. Yeah, that's crazy. And so, what's the coldest you could get during the winter?
Oh, probably can reach, relatively insane temperatures. When I went there for Christmas once, the coldest temperature we got was around minus 35 degrees Celsius.
Minus 35. I don't know how much is it in Fahrenheit, but I would say maybe like minus like 15.
So I know that minus 40 degrees Celsius is minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
So that's how I usually think about it.
Yeah.
So I mean, these are ridiculously cold temperatures, and you need to wear so many layers of wool to be outside.
I'm sure. Oh my God.
But you kind of want to be outside because that's the magic about this place is it is a winter paradise.
Yeah.
You have, I think, 3/4 of the island are glaciers, meaning that this is kind of insane. People dream about going to the Alps to see one glacier. Well, when you are there, it's only glaciers surrounding you. So
that's so crazy. I can't even like picture it. Honestly, I'll try to like pop up some photos in the videos, like to help people like picture it.
Yeah, I can try and describe it a bit the way I perceive it. So, going back to this town, in a valley with two steep mountains on both sides, and then a fjord in front of it.
Okay.
These two mountains, the reason for the location is that you had coal in the mountains.
Right.
So the town is just in the middle, and then the miners, they would tend to go up into the mountains, dig huge mines into them, and then come back. And then if you decide to go out of this valley, what you'll see, as long as the eye can see, is really just these small mountains, small white peaks everywhere. And what's funny is all of them are accessible in the winter with the snowmobile. So you take your snowmobile and then just head off into the nature.
Okay, that must be very scenic. I mean, like that sounds like a movie out of a movie scene. And
it does.
It's hard to imagine that like actually people can live there. And so how is the day-to-day life for your parents there? What are they doing?
Yeah, very good question. So it's I think the day-to-day for my parents is very different from the day-to-day of most people that lived there just a few years back, because it used to be this coal miners town. So everyone would spend their lives in the mines, come back, take off their dirty clothes, meet in the pub, and live a bit that type of lifestyle, which is crazy to be doing so far up. Now it's a bit different. Now it's mostly government people that work there.
Okay.
So which my mom is doing, so that entails actually going to a normal office. You'd be surprised how much the lifestyle they live isn't that different from the lifestyle you'd live anywhere else. It's just the surroundings that are completely different.
Okay, and so is there like restaurants and like shops there? I'm sure there is. I mean, stupid question, but like
no, but fair question. They have one grocery store, which is the one grocery store that gets the goods every week with the boat.
It's not like all the Trader Joe's and Whole Foods of New York.
It is not all. I mean, but I was surprised by how much they had there. Like they have exotic fruits, which to me was like, wow, that's insane to have a wide selection of exotic fruits that you don't necessarily find in the more typical smaller grocery stores here in New York, right? So they've got a huge variety of goods, but it's one store. everyone goes to that same store. When it comes to the restaurants, there's actually surprisingly many restaurants there.
Okay.
A bit of a fun anecdote about that is I realized some of the first people I got to know were young people my age,
Okay.
or a tiny bit older that were working in the working for restaurants as chefs or doing other things, and they had come up there for a few years. The reason why they went there was that the ingredients you could get access to there were so unique.
Okay.
So many up and coming chefs, you know, instead of going to New York and working in a restaurant in New York, they thought, you know what, I want to use raw Arctic products on Svalbard.
Uh-huh.
So what they would use is they would use the Arctic reindeer,
Okay.
make crazy good dishes around that. They could also use the seal meat,
Okay.
or even Arctic birds. So
That's
it's
crazy.
pretty fun. And I think like if I compare it to Norway, which is where I'm from, in Oslo, the capital, I'd say that I've been more impressed with the restaurants
No
on
way,
Svalbard
really?
than I have in Oslo.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's so interesting to think about it, actually.
It is. It is kind of interesting. And then when it comes to like normal stores, I mean, it's a typical. It's
Yeah.
they have most of it is very like sports centric because
Okay.
the everyone's activity outside of work is just hiking in nature.
I'm sure, yeah. You have to really love nature to
You have to really
live
love
there,
nature.
yeah.
You have to, and that's the thing with the people that go there. I like to say that, you know, the people that come to New York, they come to New York because they want this dynamic lifestyle,
Uh-huh.
and then you end up meeting a lot of people you really like in New York because they come with the same mindset as you.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit the same there. So the people that want to live on Svalbard,
Yeah.
very few people live there permanently, but many people want to spend like 5 years there,
Yeah.
which is a bit what my parents
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah.
And they're all coming at it with the same mindset. They
Yeah.
want to do crazy hikes into the nature, see polar bears,
Polar bears?
go on the snow. Yeah, I will get back to that, but yeah, go on the snowmobiles and kind of just explore in a way that you really can't do many places anymore.
Okay, that's crazy. So, like, wait, do you have like polar bears as neighbors there?
That that is actually yeah, not too far from the truth. There are a
Here
lot
we
of polar
have
bears.
rats and raccoons, and there they have polar bears.
Oh, it's crazy. I remember that was my dream that when I first visited them, it was seeing a polar bear.
Wow.
But I went in the winter time, the first time, so early winter for Christmas. It was pitch dark. That's the problem. Well, the thing is, so in the winter, the sun never rises. So it's 24 hours of darkness. You don't see very much, so you don't end
Okay.
up doing these crazy hikes in the winter time, and
Yeah.
because it's too dark. But then in the spring, when the sun comes back and the days get longer and longer, and the snow is still in its best conditions, that's where you can start to go on these crazy adventures. And that's when you might be lucky and see a polar bear, or unlucky and see a polar bear, all depending on how prepared you are.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's true. But is there like a lot there? Is it dangerous for the people?
So there's I think I heard 3,000 polar bears living on Svalbard, and that's more than there's people on the
Oh
the
yeah,
island.
that's true. Didn't think about that.
this
How
is
big
great.
is the
The Arctic,
town?
yeah. So the town itself, in terms of number of people, you're asking 2,000 people,
Okay.
and then 2,500 in total live, you know, spread across
Okay,
the
I
entire
see,
thing.
yeah.
But yeah, so 3,000. This is more polar bears. But it's easier to see a human though than a polar bear because the polar bears are white in a very white landscape.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible to see them if you don't look into the water, and you might see something white
Okay.
going for a swim in blue
And-
water.
Yeah, that's okay. And so are they like aggressive with people or like
So there's a few stories of that of them having attacked humans. On average, I think the statistics will show you that there's at least one polar bear attack each year, and every other year
which is a lot or not?
I mean, it depends on how you want to. I think it's quite a lot. I mean,
For
imagine
2,000 people, yeah, that's true.
It is like yeah. I mean, the likelihood of dying from a polar bear attack there is probably the one that has the highest likelihood of death on the island. If you die on the
Okay,
island,
yeah,
it's
when
most
you
likely
see
because of
things, yeah.
it's most likely a polar bear that took your life. And but very rarely the people on the island that die. It's usually the tourists. So be aware if anyone
Yeah.
if you want to visit.
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
How to survive if you're being attacked by a polar bear.
Oh, absolutely. I think the thing that usually tricks the unlucky people are that polar bears are sea mammals. They spend most of their time in the water, which people don't think. You know, think, or I at least think of a polar bear. I think of a creature living on land, and sometimes going to fetch a seal in the water. But they actually spend most of their day in the water. And so
Yeah.
what they will do is, if you go by the water side and you think you're safe because there's no dangers around you, the polar bear might have seen you from the other side of the fjord
okay.
and gone for a swim, and then come up out of the water
Okay.
right in front of you.
Wow.
And
Oh,
then
they're
go
super
for
smart,
another.
and I'm sure they're super used to like live close with humans. So
And it's actually to an extent where we have now trackers in many of the ones that tend to come close to the
okay.
town.
that's smart.
It's smart and it's a bit fun. The first thing I realized was there was a lot of helicopters always passing over the town. And my mom told me, yeah, that the reason why these helicopters are here is that they're trying to chase off the polar bears that are
to scare
approaching
them?
to scare them, yeah.
With the sound of the helicopter.
And just with the sound of the helicopter.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So you will not. Shooting a polar bear is that's something you're only allowed to do in case of near death
Yeah.
situations. So you would never do that otherwise.
Yeah, of course. Because it's a protected animal. We
It
should
is.
remember that.
It is a very protected animal. But it's. But yeah, they're a bit of a funny story. I mean, there's one polar bear in particular that the entire island has a love-hate relationship to. It's called Frozen.
Oh, so cute.
Very, very cute. I mean, and when you hear about Frozen, you just want Frozen to succeed, because Frozen is this polar bear that is smarter than the typical polar bear.
Okay.
It's the bear that will look for empty cabins, where no one is inside, and it will with its paw open the front door,
Oh my
walk
gosh, She
in,
knows what she's doing.
find the cabinet of food, and then just with its claws open the compartments of food and just eat everything before peacefully leaving.
Okay.
And it sounds like in one way you're like, oh no, but then you're like, at least this polar bear makes sure that there's no humans in these cabins. What's very funny is people try to make it harder and harder for Frozen to get in. So what they did is they installed wires around the empty cabins that had a trigger-off alarm system, so that if she were to touch the wire, then the alarm would go off.
Okay.
And she did that mistake once of touching the wire, but after that she realized she needed to avoid the wire at all costs. So she still managed to get herself in, but now she was much smarter in navigating without touching the wire.
That's crazy.
So,
So she's like looking for food in the houses.
oh,
and-
she's realized that fetching seal is getting more and more difficult. So
because of the climate.
because of
Yeah.
climate change, unfortunately. And they're adapting. I think you see that with a lot of species that they need to adapt in some way. And unfortunately, she's realized that the easiest and laziest way of adapting is just to feed on humans.
Yeah.
Luckily, without actually eating the
It's
humans.
easy food for Frozen.
Eas-
I mean,
easy.
easy if there is no alarm, I guess.
Easy if there is no alarm, she still manages to
Yeah.
get around the alarm system. But yeah,
Okay, I'll try to find a picture of Frozen to show people.
oh, absolutely.
But okay, so it's so interesting. So, is this town part of Norway?
So a good question. So without getting into the nitty-gritty details of it, I'll say yes. It's a territory that is governed by Norway.
Governed by Norway.
So a bit the interesting side to the island that makes it not a complete part of Norway is the fact that other Arctic countries are allowed to establish business there.
Okay.
And so when I said that there were 2 towns on the island in the beginning, the second town is actually a Russian town.
Russian town. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a much smaller one, and for some years it was actually a ghost town because the Russians
Okay.
completely left, but then they came back, and now there's approximately 500 Russians living on the island.
Wow, crazy. Okay. And so, like, can people move there easily if they like if tomorrow I decide that I want to move there and like find a home there? Is it like something I could do if I'm not working for the government? Or
You know, it's very funny because there's a few people that have done that.
Okay.
I've seen some I've seen some TikTokers that actually have sort of gone for that lifestyle where they want to try and live there for a few years
Yeah, because it's
and
such an
yeah,
experience and like
and just share their day-to-day life.
yeah.
And I think that that is right now possible. Might become harder with time, but
Okay.
right now possible to do. Uh,
And I'm sure there's also like tourism and like hotels there you can stay
you
if you want to get the experience.
you have a more short-term way of doing so, right? So it's and right now I saw that there was an article that was publishing, I think it was New York Times, but don't arrest me if I'm wrong, that talked about this luxury tourism, which is basically American tourists coming to Svalbard, and how that is very expensive because there's a huge demand for hotel rooms
Yeah.
with really a short supply. They're not allowed to build out anything on the island, so
Yeah, yeah.
really what you have there is really what there is, and
Yeah.
it's mostly filled up with government employees.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's crazy to think about how the luxury tourism is taking this switch of like people are more and more looking for very unique experiences and like thing that other people cannot do, and like
Yeah.
they want to feel like, oh my god, I'm doing something very unique. And I'm sure this is like why people are so interested in that place. And do you think it's something that's annoying for the people living there?
So on the contrary, I think that it's a net positive. I mean, now that coal is on its way out, we need a new industry
Yeah.
on the island, and I think people on the island have decided that tourism should be that new industry, and there's really no other alternative as things stand today. And so and they seem to be adjusting quite well to it. They're very proud of their island, and I think they're looking for an excuse to stay. And so having that industry, having tourism
Yeah.
as an excuse is a net positive.
Okay.
And also, like, imagine these people have traditionally been super hard workers. You know, miners spending their days in the mines
Oh.
and working in shifts. So some were working in the daytime, some were working at night. You couldn't always tell whether it's daytime or the night anyhow because of how dark it is in the winter. But going from that type of very hardcore lifestyle to one where you essentially bring tourists on your snowmobiles around and
Yeah,
just show off the landscapes.
sure.
It's also a more relaxing way for them to be living on the island, right?
Crazy. Oh my god, it's so fascinating like to talk about all that, and I was not expecting like people just like could live in such a crazy, like not crazy but like unique place. So I don't know if you have like some like fun anecdotes to share with us
Oh,
about like your time there or like
Oh, absolutely. I'll try to keep it brief, but so one of the things I got to try, which you should definitely try and do when you go there, is to visit the coal mines.
cold mines.
Yeah, so the mines where they extracted the coal, and because they don't do it in any of the mines no longer apart from one, which
Okay.
is still active. The only reason why it's active is because there's a need for coal and energy in Europe at the moment. But they're planning to close that one down as well. But when you go in there, you can see how the workers lived before and how they spent their days lying on the floor and trying to like cut the coal out of the mountain.
Okay.
And really in these narrow spaces, and I'm a bit claustrophobic. I didn't realize before I went into those mines
Yeah.
how claustrophobic I was. But to me that was kind of insane. And what's funny is when you walk in those mines, you'll also see that there are a few huge gates that are closed off, and you ask, well, what's in there? And they'll tell you the funniest stories. So it used to be these places where they would keep equipment, but now what they're doing is in some of them they're storing cheese.
Cheese, okay.
So there is a super old cheese that they're like storing for years and years in like minus 20 degrees
like,
inside
to
the
eat
mountain
it?
to eat it, to
Okay.
preserve it in
Okay.
the best conditions.
Yeah,
is
I
what they
guess you
say.
can preserve food very well there.
Preserve food very well, and I actually never got to taste that cheese, but I thought like that's
Yeah,
that's
you better taste
cheese.
it next time you go.
Us two having a bit of French descent, we definitely should be doing
Yeah.
that. And then so that's a bit the funnier one. But then they also have others, for where they store a lot of other stuff, so it can be either information, in some of these mines, they actually now today store all data on human beings on hard disks. What they've done is they've just put onto hard disks everything that humanity has created, from the Mona Lisa to how the iPhone is made, to all the Spotify songs that exist, are stored there in case of an apocalypse, and if some people were to try and recreate
that's crazy.
what humanity has. So so that is stored there. They also on the island have something called the seed vault, and the seed vault to me is also kind of fascinating. Norway did this initiative where for some reason was thinking very about what would happen in case of a nuclear war.
Okay.
We might lose most of our natural resources, including many of the grains and plants that we feed on. So what they did is they created a vault with all the seeds of all the plants on the planet, to store them for a long period of time in case we one day lose any types of plants or something worse happens.
Wow.
So it's actually this place that, because of its cold nature, can be used to store a lot of information.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, wow, okay. I feel better knowing that though, so I know that if something is happening to us, we can like still save the humanity, I guess.
I like to think about that as well. Well, but then again, it is this place that is located very close to the NATO border between where the conflicts usually happen. So then you can also think, will this place actually be preserved in case of a bigger war, a bigger attack?
I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie right now.
You do feel, and there's a lot of, actually, I was surprised to see or not a lot, but there's, I think, 2 or 3 series that are a bit thriller series about Svalbard, and and there's one only about the seed vault itself. So if you're excited to see learn a bit more about these places.
No, definitely. And I also read a book recently about it was a fiction, obviously. I don't remember the title now. Maybe I know the French one, but I can put the link later on the video. And it was talking also about an apocalypse happening, and people storing that stored all the information the necessary to recreate the humanity later on. And that's why I say I feel like in a sci-fi book or movie. It's crazy.
Oh, absolutely. There's one last thing you have to do when you go there, which is a crazy thing to do, but I think it's so worth it. It's to go for a swim.
To go for a swim?
If you can,
But you're freezing if you
go
go there.
You are freezing. But they luckily have a sauna that you can jump back into.
Right after?
Right after, and right before usually. So you heat up to the extent where you're uncomfortably warm, and then you jump out into the water. You try to stay there. You hold yourself to the ice on both sides, because they make a hole in the ice for you to jump into.
Oh wow!
You hold yourself tight onto the glass.
Have you done that?
I did that once.
You're crazy.
Crazy. I mostly did it because my cousin is crazy and wanted to dare me to do it. But it was very fun, and the adrenaline you get out of it is...
and I heard actually it's very good for the body to be in cold water. So.
See, that's what she convinced me about as well, and I...
easily convinced.
I'm easily convinced, and so now I am the one advocating to others about this.
So you guys all have to try that if you go. But then, so when's the next time you go there?
I might go there in the fall.
Nice.
So that's pretty nice. I try to see all the seasons, because it's all the seasons are so different.
Yeah. I mean, your parents live there, so you should make the most of it.
Make the most out of it. It would be super fun to do the summertime, just because summertime means 24 hours of sun, and so sometimes in the weekends, my parents might go for a short nap at 3 p.m. and wake up at 7 p.m. And then they will be up till 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and you won't be able to tell the difference, because the sun will be exactly on the same spot, and it will be as light outside.
It must be so weird, actually.
So weird. I think that these extreme changes in how what your daytime looks like is very bizarre. And I know that my dad, he's French and from Paris. He had a bit of a hard time in the beginning adjusting to the dark nights, and so he
Yeah.
needed to start taking vitamins. But as soon as he started taking
Oh
vitamins, he
yeah,
told
yeah. I
me,
heard people have to do that to like
yeah,
stay healthy and like
Just
because you
stay
don't have
healthy.
enough sun. And
Exactly.
they even have like fake lamps with like UV.
Yeah, so there's
and-
we have those fake lamps
Yeah.
at
Oh,
home.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, you just need to be conscious of the fact that the body needs light.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true.
it needs, it's a vitamin D, right? That is
Yeah, vitamin D. Yeah.
It needs vitamin D, and but if you are conscious of that and you make the necessary adjustments, then I don't think it necessarily has to be as hard as people expect it to be
Yeah.
either.
Cool. And how do you go there? Do you fly to Norway and then?
Yeah, so
there?
so good question. You it's a bit tricky to travel to. Although I wouldn't say that the price, the cost is the problem, but they will require many stops. So first you have to fly into Oslo,
Oslo. Okay.
so the capital of Norway, and that's located in the south of Norway. And after that, you will take a flight from Oslo to Tromsø. Tromsø is the biggest town in the north of Norway,
Okay.
and that's a say maybe a 3 hour flight, 2 to 3 hour flight, and then from there you take another flight. The last
So
flight,
3 flights.
3 flights. So the last one takes you from this Tromsø town in the north of Norway and up to Svalbard, and it's a 2 hour flight
Okay.
straight up north.
Okay. Yeah, that's a long journey. You have to be motivated to get there.
You have to be motivated to get there, and that's the problem with me right now being in New York. It's it already far for me
Yeah.
to travel to
Yeah.
Oslo, but even further up there, right?
Cool. I mean, okay. I think I don't know. We talked about like pretty much everything.
I have so much to talk about, but
Yeah,
yes, I
I'm
think
sure-
we covered
I'm sure,
we covered a
but-
great deal.
No, we covered like a lot already, and I'm sure I could spend hours listening to you. Honestly, like it's so interesting and so fascinating. Also because I love traveling. I'm so passionate about it, and I love learning about new countries. So yeah, and thanks the helicopter. That's great. We cannot hear anybody. Yeah, that's maybe cats.
Yes.
Bye.
Wait, one picture. 3, 2.